Hey everyone, what you see here is a completely vibe-coded point-and-click adventure game. We've got this fully 3D rig character, and we have this really nice animated background as well. Let me just turn up the audio here so you can see the full experience as well. Alright, you can see there's background music and it also has full voice acting. So I'm just going to look at this chest over here.
A heavy chest with 3 rusty locks. There's a faded skull scratched into the lid.
It has an inbuilt level editor, so I can go ahead and change the navigation mesh such that the player is going to be able to walk in different places. And you can see I'm just going to be editing this hotspot over here, which allows me to change the dialogue, set the audio, and then the different messages as well. And the best part is, this entire game runs and works on your mobile device as well, as you can see over here. And you can see that I'm able to teleport and go into a completely different level. And some of you might look at this and say, oh, in order to build something like this, you need Unity, Unreal, and then for you to be able to do the animations, you might need to learn Blender. Well, I didn't use any of that. I built everything that you see here, from the characters, to the backgrounds, to the music, to the voices, to the level editor. Everything was vibe coded using AI tools. So in today's video, I'll be showing you step by step my exact workflow. I'll be showing you how I generated this concept art for this character, converted into 3D, including textures, skins, animations, and then finally, how I got it to work within a ThreeJS scene that also runs on mobile devices. And I'll be showing you the two skills, the ThreeJS Builder skill, as well as the ThreeJS Capacitor iOS skill that allow me to vibe code the entire thing and deploy on the device straight from the Codex CLI. So if you want to get hold of some of the resources from today's tutorial, I made them completely free as part of my Insiders Club. Within it, you'll be able to get access to other free materials as part of my previous videos. And I also send out weekly emails, including tips, tricks, workflows, and early access to some of the stuff that I've been working on. And if you want to take this a step further, check out builderpack.ai. It is my exact workflows and resources that I use to build software and games using AI. So if you get the all access pass today, you get everything, including all the builder packs that I've released in the past, access to a private Discord community where you can share ideas and discuss things with other AI builders. And very soon I will be releasing the newest, and what I'm soon going to be releasing as part of BuilderPack AI is this game development vibe coding resource. This will contain everything that I've learned so far about how to vibe code games, whether it's 2D games, 3D games for your desktop, the web, and for mobile applications as well. There'll be another one on vibe coding iOS applications. These two things will be landing soon and the price will be going up. If you lock in the price of all access today, you will get lifetime updates and including these additional resources when they land. The links are in the description below. So without further ado, let's get started with today's video. So the first thing that you want to be doing is getting this 3D character into a game. I've got just 3 different animations: run, walk, and idle. All I really wanted to do initially was to see if I could get a ThreeJS environment working on a mobile device. So you can see it is running right over here. You can pinch to zoom, you can change the animations that are playing. And so this is how this whole thing started out. But before I know it, I just added one thing after another and then ended up with this fully fledged game that you see over here. So the very first thing that you want to be doing is to generate an image of a 3D character. All I did was to just go onto the Gemini app online. And you can see here, this is the exact prompt that I use. And in order to build this image over here, I made use of Nano Banana Pro. For those of you who do not know, this is an image generation model by Google. Now, the main thing about this is that we are using the Pro version of it, Gemini 3 image model, which is a lot better than the standard Nano Banana model. In order for you to get really good results, there's a prompting guide that you can see over. So what I did was I just simply copied this URL and went into a Gemini, and then I asked it to study the prompting guide. And I said, I want to create a 3D character, a whimsical cartoonish pirate in a T-pose, so that I could then pass it to an image to 3D software. And make sure that you've turned thinking on if you're using Gemini 3. So you can see here are the results of the thinking process. Okay, and it gives you this recommended prompt that you see over here. So this is a process that you can make use of whenever you want to generate images. Instead of simply just typing it blankly into Nano Banana, what you want to do is ask Gemini or your favorite AI model to first of all study the prompting guide, and then you give your instructions that you want to do, and then it will be able to improve your prompt. Okay, so now with that done, I then went ahead into Google AI Studio and switch the model to Nano Banana Pro that you see over here. Now, this is a paid model, so you will need to connect your API keys in order to get hold of this model over here. I think you can actually access this within the Gemini app itself, but the safest way is to go into AI Studio, make sure that this is using Nano Banana Pro, and then you'll be sure that it is using the correct model. All right, so all I did was to just simply paste this into here, And then this generated the image, as you see right over here. Sometimes you might get a model render of it slightly tilted to the side. You want to make sure that it's facing straight on and facing straight on back, because this is really crucial when we move on to the next step, where we make use of Meshy to create the character model. All right, so now we have this image over here. So all we have to do is just save this image. And one thing that you want to do is that you want to split this such that you have the front and back images as separate images. And you can do this very simply. You can just go into your favorite editing tool, but I'm really lazy. So what I did is that I just prompted Codex to split this image for me. And so I ended up with the front images over here, as you see over here. Now, this is really important because for Meshy, this is what you're going to need in order to generate the model. All right, so this is Meshy, which is a really fantastic AI tool that I've been using to create these assets that you see over here. The main thing that I use is this image to 3D functionality, but there's many other things where you can do text to 3D, text to image, and 3D to video as well. But for now, we're just going to focus on the image to 3D option that we see over here. You can get quite far on the free plan. In fact, it's quite generous. But then I'm on the pro plan because I need to make use of some additional functionality, which I will talk about shortly. But to make use of Meshy is really simple. All you need to do is just take the image that you have, just pop it over here. Okay, all right, and it will automatically generate a name for you that you want. The model I'm using is Meshy 6. And then the pose here that I'm going to be using is actually a T pose. So an A pose will be something like this, where the arms are in an A shape. Actually, I might start doing this going forward because I think that an A pose will enable you to have a better rigging result. But for now, you don't have to worry. You can simply just keep this as a T pose. And then all you have to do here is just click generate. Now, one of the things that you could do is to turn on multi-view. And this allows you to add additional images as well. So now you can put in the back image and then the front image. And this is very useful if you think that your character actually has something at the back that, wouldn't be easily understood by AI from the front. But in this case, my model is pretty simple, so I actually did not make use of the multi-view system. I just did it this way. And all I did was to click generate over here. So here's the result when you generate it. So this is a high poly model based on the image that you have over here. And I'll explain this very quickly in a short while. But the next thing you want to do is simply click on this texture button over here. And this will take your image and then it will apply the coloring onto the 3D model that you see over here, which is currently gray. All right, you can leave the generate PBR maps on and then you just click texture over here. So this is really good because this has matched the style of the mockup that you saw earlier. And you can see it's been able to generate this strap at the back of it as part of the model process and also texture it pretty nicely as well. So that's the reason why I say you don't really need to use multi-view. I have used multi-view, as you can see with this 3D character over here, which I'll just quickly show you, because I wanted to have this little ribbon at the back, which you may not necessarily know about if it didn't have that. Okay. All right. So now that you have your textured model, the next thing that you want to do is to begin to rig it. And rigging is the process of giving a skeleton to this model so that you will be able to go ahead and animate it. So with this, you can go ahead and click on rig. And then you will see down here, it will say something that the poly count is over 300,000. Please remesh before rigging. All right, so the reason why this is a problem is that a high poly count means that the model is very complex and the rigging process might not work. And you need to get this down to a lower poly count. It should automatically pull up the remesh option for you over here, but otherwise you can click on remesh, which will allow you to cut down this model from 370,000 faces into something lower. Now, because this is a low poly style game and it's very stylized, you don't really need that number of faces. So all I did was to just reduce it down to 1,000 because I want this to be able to run on mobile as well. And then the topology that you use, there's some explanation of when you might want to use one or the other. But because we are building this for a game, you want to use triangles because game engines tend to render triangles more optimally. So you want to keep this about 1,000. You can play around with this number if you have a more complex number, but for now, thousands is fine. And then you just click on confirm over here. All right, so once that is done, you can see that now the number of faces has dropped significantly down. You will get this optimized, remeshed model that you see. Okay, and then with this, you should be able to now click on rig. And Meshy is really good. You don't have to really think too much about it. All you have to do is just click on humanoid. Click on next. Because we have a symmetrical model, you don't have to do anything here. Because our character is a little bit more cartoonized with a much bigger head, you can just hide over here, but everything else should be kept the same. And when you click on next, this is where you place the markers for the different joints so that it knows how to move the hands and the legs all around. Now, this is actually pretty good now because it's able to guess the points, but if you want to be more accurate, you might need to adjust certain things. So this gives you a good rough gauge of where you need to put the things. So you can put the chin somewhere else if it's not there. So what I tend to do is lower the knee a little bit, and then for the ankles, lower it somewhere around here. Okay, so the problem is that the leg over here is not supposed to bend, but if you put a joint over here, you will see that it ends up bending. So what you want to do is probably just turn off symmetry for a second, move this ankle up because you don't want this to start bending. I didn't do this for my model, but you should be able to do this. Once you click confirm, it will give you a rig model. And once you got to this stage, you're pretty much there. It will give you a default walk model. You can go ahead and then add other animations. So the other animations that I added to it were the running animation that you see over here, and then the idle animation, so that when he's standing still, he has a bit of animation as well. There's a huge animation library that you can use over here that should get you pretty far in your prototyping phase. But if you wanted to go ahead and create new animations, you can export this model out and then use another library, or you could just create your animations yourself. But that's not for this tutorial. This is just focused on getting you up and running as fast as possible. Okay, the next thing that you want to do is to get this model into your file system so that you can load it up within the game. Okay, so the way that you do it is that you click on download over here. All right, make sure that this is GLB. Okay, you can turn on and off rig character. This just adds an additional pose. All right, and you want to put this in as all edit animations, and then you click on single file. Okay, and then when you click on download, this will just take a while to process. And then the way that I like to save it is that in your project, go into public, assets, and then I put it into a folder called GLB, and then just save the zip file over there. And what I like to do is that you just unzip this. Okay, and if you jump into the folder, you will see you have two outputs. One of them is the character and one of the animations. And so what I did is just call this pirate skeleton, and then I called this pirate animations. Okay, and then I renamed the folder to pirate as you see over here. So I'm just going to delete this and then just show you. You can see this is done from the previous round that I had. Okay, so now this is all you need to do. So now you've got your assets ready. And the next thing that you want to go ahead and do is to get this into a ThreeJS environment so that you can go ahead and play around with it. All right, so now that you've extracted out this, so you can see in the GLB folder, under pirate, we have the pirate skeleton and the pirate animations. Okay, so now that we have this working, what we want to do is to create a ThreeJS scene to load in this model and its animations as well. And this will give you a result that looks something like we have over here. Okay, so the library that we'll be using is ThreeJS, for those of you who are not familiar, and it's effectively the best library for creating 3D content for the web, and in this case, also for your mobile devices. All right, so one thing to note about working with ThreeJS, if you simply try to load this character and his animations and put it in a scene, you will most likely encounter a bunch of little bugs. And this if you're just using the vanilla models like Opus, Codex, or GPT-5 or whatever. It might get it right in some cases, but most of the time you encounter issues like it's facing the wrong way, or when you move left, it's actually moving, or it might be upside down, or the animations don't play. And there are several reasons for why this happens. So I'm going to show you the workflow that I use to get this right 99% of the time. So you don't have to spend hours trying to debug the positioning of your character, whether it's moving right or left, whether the collision boundaries are correct, because that's just a huge waste of time. So let me just show you how this is done. The key thing here is that I'm making use of a ThreeJS builder skill that I've created and that I've shared, and I've also made freely and publicly available that helps you to overcome all of these problems. And I know that this works very well because there have been several people on social media who have made use of these skills to build some really cool stuff as well. So this has been battle tested and it will help you immensely along the way. Okay? All right, so let me just show the hidden folders over here, and I'm just going to go to Codex and skills, and you can see we have this ThreeJS builder skill over here. And maybe it's easier if I just jump into VS Code. And you can see I have a Codex version, and I also have a Claude code version. And they are very similar in many ways, but one of them is optimized for use with the Claude models, and one of them is optimized to use with the GPT models. You can get hold of it in the links in the description below. Okay, so with this skill, this helps you to overcome a huge bunch of issues because it already handles several things to do with like the lighting, the animations, which is usually where all of the problems comes about, and helps you when you're doing camera controls as well. All right, so what you want to do, I'm going to hop over into Codex over here, and there are two things that you want to do. Step one, you want to create something called an index.json. Okay, so I will just show you the prompt that I'm going to be using over here. So I'm going to say, study the pirate asset over here, and you can easily make sure that these reference it by adding the @ sign. Okay, and then I said, create an asset JSON file that will clearly lay out the model's animations and states so that it will be easily imported into a ThreeJS scene. Now, you can use plan mode for this, but because the skill has been iterated upon quite a lot, I'm quite confident that you can get this without plan. And what you want to do before you run, go into model and make sure you're using 5.3 Codex high or use 5.2 high. All right, both of these should work very well. I use Codex whenever I'm using coding tasks, and then I use 5.2 whenever I'm doing any like image recognition or spatial or creative tasks. In this case, creating these assets, so you probably can get away with Codex 5.3. And what you want to do is just run this prompt that you see over here. All right, so you can see what it's going to do is that it's going to explore and study the GLB files, and then it's going to create an index.json. And I'm going to kill this because I already have one created from my previous run, so I'll just show it to you over here. So if you look into this, this effectively is a JSON representation of everything it's found within those character animations and skeletal meshes files. If you look here, it's loaded in the pirate. It knows where the skeleton is. It has gone into the model using the skill to identify all of the different layers and the skeletons and the animations for you. And then it's also set all the things like the duration, whether it loops, and then it also goes through all of the other animations and sets the durations, loops, and the different tags as well. This is a really important step. If you do not create this and you always just rely on the AI model to say, oh, make it move into this state or make it animate in this way, you will see you just have tons of problems, okay? And the reason why you have a JSON file is so that, number one, you'll be token efficient. You don't need to run a script to study the GLB files again in order to identify the animation. You know that this is always up to date. And whenever you change your model, just ask it to recreate this assets JSON file again. It just makes it a lot easier. Secondly, it makes it easy for you to tweak and debug. So one of the issues that you might face, and which I also did, is that sometimes it just gets the animations wrong. So idle becomes walk, becomes run, becomes idle. I'm not sure whether this is because of like the way that it's been exported out of Meshy or whether there's something wrong or some assumptions, but I've seen this happen a few times. So when this happens, all you need to do is just go into your AI and just say, update the JSON file, right? You don't have to do anything with the model, and this is very useful. Okay, so once you've done this and you've gotten this JSON file, the next thing that you want to do is to actually create this scene. I'll show you the prompt that you can use right over here. All right, before you run this prompt, you can do skills. All right, and you do list skills, and you can see that the ThreeJS builder skill is here. So you press enter, and this will make sure that it uses this ThreeJS builder skill. The other way you can do is just do $sign and then type ThreeJS builder. That also works as well. And then that's where you pop in the prompt that you see over here. Okay, so now let's create the scene. We are going to do a ThreeJS builder skill. And this time I'm going to use the following prompt. All right, create me a ThreeJS scene with the loaded pirate character. Okay, I want this to have the orbit camera, and I want the buttons to switch between the different animation states. And then this is where it's really important. And an orbit camera, or an orbicam as it's known around, is where you have this thing where you can rotate around the character, you can pan up and down, and you can zoom in and out. This is called an orbit camera or an orbicam. All right, and you really want to have this because it makes things a lot easier when you're working within 3D. But this is the standard I'm used to. I work with game development engines, depending on what you use. I use Unreal a lot. And the other thing you want to do is make sure that this is touch control friendly. So left mouse button, single touch is for rotating, scroll wheel, pinch to zoom, and then right mouse button is when you have two fingers. And this will ensure that when you have this running on a mobile device, that you're going to be able to have the same result, and you can have the same result that you see over here. Okay. The next thing you want to do is to switch into plan mode. Whenever you're embarking on a fairly large task that, is quite complex, you want to be in plan mode because this will help to avoid some of the errors that can occur when it tries to basically go off and do it on its own, because it makes it think quite hard about it. The other thing that you want to mention is that make sure to use the assets.index.json that you use. So use the as a guide as the canonical reference for the pirate character. Okay, and you don't have to point to the models anymore because as you saw earlier with the assets.json, it actually has all the information in there already for you. I'm going to jump into my project because I always like to save my plan. All right, so you can see this is the plan that I have for creating the assets.json. So previously when I said you don't need a plan, maybe it's still a good idea to have a plan. And then now that I look at the plan that I use for my model viewer, I see that I actually went ahead and asked it to be iOS compatible. So that is the mistake that I made. So I'm just going to jump back quickly here. All right, I'm going to kill this for a second and update this because I also want to add in, use the ThreeJS capacitor iOS skill to make sure it can be deployed on mobile. Okay, so with this one, you will end up with a plan like this. And now's a really good time to just quickly talk to you about what Capacitor is. All right, so Capacitor is this cross-platform native runtime for web apps. And it's really good because with this, you are able to have your ThreeJS application or your web application, and you would just compile it, build it, and it would just immediately deploy it onto a simulator or a device for you. And there's this whole iOS documentation on how you can get everything working. But to save you the trouble of going through all of this, you can actually go ahead and just ask the AI to study these docs, and then make sure that anything that it needs to do to make it work on the mobile device, as you see over here, is going to be done for you. But I've already done that step for you as well. So what I did was that I created a ThreeJS capacitor iOS skill that effectively studied all the documentations and then tried to make sure that it understood everything that needs to be done before it will actually work on the device. I've iterated on this for a while, and I made use of something called Skill Creator Plus, which is my own meta skill, which I often use whenever I'm creating new skills such as this. The Skill Creator Plus is something that is part of my build pack. If you want to get hold of it, you can check it out. All right, because you're using both skills as part of the plan, it will ask you questions. Now, the reason why you have these questions is because I already have an existing scene over here, so it's thinking, do I need to create a new viewer? But for you, it will probably say, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to add a button and a main menu screen. Okay? And so once you've done this, you'll most likely end up with something very similar to what you see over here. Now, what you want to do is that you want to get this running on an iOS device, like the simulator over here. Because of the capacitor skills, all you have to do is just say, capacitor iOS skill, I want this project to be deployed on an iOS simulator. Okay, and I'm just going to show you the resulting plan over here, is that once everything has been done, it will know how to install all the different dependencies, and then it will set all the different bootstrapping that's required for it to run on the device. And once everything is done, you don't even need to open Xcode. It creates the project for you. The only thing that you might need to do is, if you want to run this on your physical device, is that you need to set up your team signing. But for the purpose of running it on a simulator, you don't need to do any of that. In fact, you can just quit Xcode because you don't need it. I'm just going to say, using capacitor, deploy this on the simulator, right? And this will automatically handle everything for you. It will set up a bunch of scripts such that it will easily build the game for iOS, and then it will list all your simulators for you. You can see everything is just run from command line. You don't need to open Xcode. It's just going to build it for you, and then it's going to run the simulator. It's going to list all the devices. As you can see, it's built the game correctly. It's going to list everything that it needs from the simulator, and then before you know it, it will load and run the app that you see over here. In some cases, it might say that, oh, it needs to list the different devices that it has. You can click proceed and it will continue. But the other thing that you can do is just go through approvals and just do full access, and then it won't bother you with that ever again. So this is a really big step. I've just shown you how you could go from this generated image that you have over here, and then going to Meshy, and then getting all the way from just the model into a fully rig animated character. And then after that, getting it into the game over here, as well as running on a simulator. And this is really just one of the key unlocks that you need in order to get up and running. In a future video, I'll be showing you how I went about creating this entire scene. It's actually a fairly similar process, which I'll just very quickly outline. I use Nano Banana Pro for the backgrounds, and then I use an image to video model to make it animated. And then I vibe coded this level editor to allow me to add things like the navigation meshes, as well as the hotspots. But I hope that you found this video useful because it outlines the steps that I took to get all the way from a concept image into a rendered scene that runs on your mobile. And that's really the key thing. Everything else is iterated upon from there. So if you enjoyed today's video and you'd like to see the second part, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so that you'll be the first to know when new content like this drops and the second part of this tutorial comes out. All right, so thank you very much. I'll see you next time.